me give you just a quick basic rundown from Billy Rand's viewpoint. Then I'm not going to drill on any longer. I'll be glad to answer questions, and if there's no questions, then we'll go eat. How's that?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is a note to Dave Dwiggins from Billy Rand, subject Udorn Operation 1961. The following described operation was under a lot of political scrutiny by a number of political, governmental, and military officials for many reasons. A big concern was that Thai government was allowing the USA to conduct military operations within its territory against Cold War action in Laos. Later, those operations would expand into the Vietnam War. Therefore, since we were the only USA war being conducted at that moment in time, there was no end of high-powered supervision for this operation. Planning. Early in 1961, Marine Air Base Squadron 16, shortened the way military does to MABS 16, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Johnson, was assigned a mission to supply ground support for Air America's operation at Udorn, Thailand, and eventually to turn that ground support facility over to Air America. Essentially what happened, the first number of Air America people in there had one day been a Marine helicopter squadron. The next day they were all civilians carrying passports. The airplanes all got a quick paint job and all drab all over everything, but when the sun came in, the aircraft came in, the sun hit them just right, you could see U.S. Marines all over the side of that sucker. So they went from being U.S. Marines to CIA employees for, I guess they were phased out over about 6 or 8 months, and actual retirees and so forth pulled in to replace these guys, and they got back in the Marine Corps. MAB 16 was located at Futim Air Facility in Okinawa. Since that facility was in the process of being built, MAB 16 security officer and security unit had to remain there. The 3rd Mardia was directed to supply security personnel for this operation, and that's where we got it. My battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Martin Sexton of CO 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, was directed to prepare a security unit to be attached to MAB 16 for this operation. Colonel Sexton directed me to make liaison with the 3rd Mardiv and MAB 16 and prepare the 1st platoon plus a weapons section of K Company 3-3 for this operation. The platoon sergeant was Gunny Sergeant Pat Dwyer, and the right guide was Sergeant Thomas Perez. The weapons section was headed by Sergeant Malloy, all experienced Marines. I spent most of my time working with Colonel Johnson and his small staff going over intelligence reports, photos, and maps of the Udorn area. The Thai government limited us to 300 personnel. My platoon would have only 55 Marines, a very small unit to cover the airfield, water purification unit, fuel farm, shops, etc. Once at Udorn, we had to supply a town patrol with 5 Marines. Either Gunny Dwyer or I had to run the town patrol. Colonel Johnson only wanted the 2 of us to handle the security of the airfield and town patrol. That's where I lucked out. I had 2 staff named CO, so we got every 3rd night instead of just trading posts on and off base. MAB 16 was spread thin also, as were the engineers and other personnel assigned to the operation. We flew out of Naha, Okinawa in U.S. Air Force C-130s and set up the camp and facilities as generally outlined in your map. You can't see what I've got on their computer there. I was hoping to get it on the big screen, but I'm running a CD and it don't play on a DVD player. But if you want to get a chance to come up here and look, that thing there is the airstrip. This is the main road into Udorn. When the Marines first landed, they set up between the strip and the main road. That was some of those early pictures you saw. Then as things became extra sloppy there, they thought, well, we got a solution to this, we'll move across the strip and build a platform city. And so they did. By the time I got there, we had it pretty good. Does anybody remember what that platform city was made out of?
Mahogany.
Mahogany wood. Mahogany.
Nail, putting all our nails in that.
You pay a fortune for mahogany furniture here, over there they're using it for building materials. Also, this map that I took off of Dave's website shows a fence there. Weren't no fence that I ever remember. And neither was there a taxiway at that point. That taxiway, if you remember some of those pictures, was probably was the biggest mud holes between the new camp and the runway. You didn't traverse that hardly at all. If you did, you were up to your knees there. You could not take a vehicle in, or you were going to leave it. There was a hard stand off the main runway, perhaps about halfway out, where we used to park our own airplane, and the Marine Matthew unit, the radar unit, was out there. We flew out of Naha, Okinawa, and U.S. Air Force C-130s and set up the camping facilities as generally outlined in your map. The local people sat on the road in other areas watching us land and watching us C-130s and C-124s land with our supplies and equipment, and watch where we put them, so you can come in at night and get some. There was no fence around the airport at Udorn, which caused us no inconvenience, because civilians and Gold Road priests were continually walking across the runway with C-130s and C-124s landing. How would the Air Force react to that? Not too well. We didn't either, but we didn't have much luck stopping it. The local police were supposed to secure our outer perimeter, but they did not seem to have control over the civilians. There was a Thai Air Force major that could speak English who helped us with this and other situations, as did the local Thai police. It remained an ongoing problem while I was there. So I showed up, we had that pretty well resolved. Every once in a while we get in a little situation. Basically, within a few days, we had the tent camp, shops, landing control equipment, emergency equipment, fuel farms, etc. in operation. And Air America flew in their helicopters, which were Marine UH-34s with green paint covering the Marine on the side of the choppers. The engineers built a permanent camp out of mahogany on the other side of the runway, which was a really hard job. The camp was built several feet above the ground because the monsoons did leave large areas of water all over the airport facilities. And I think you saw some pretty good pictures of that. They have two seasons over there, wet and wetter. The living areas, mess hall, etc. were all screened off because of the bugs. And we had a few extra of those.